with casting pearls amongst the swine. 'Cause each of us is running out of time. It's already started silent, you won't hear a chime. You'll be measured and punished for each heavenly crime.
Good evening and welcome to the Belfast podcast. Tonight is not entertainment and it's not another cozy podcast where everyone pretends the world is fine. I brought a man who has walked straight into the jaws of hell and dragged children back out of it. So if you've come here for banter, you're in the wrong place. If you've came here to hear truth without a safety net, then welcome. My name is Mark. This is the Belfast Bobcast, and tonight we sit down with Sam Childers, the machine gun preacher. A man who didn't wait for permission, didn't wait for comfort, and didn't wait for applause. He acted, and men today need to hear that. Before we begin, settle yourself, share the stream, hit the like button so this conversation travels further than the darkness wants it to. So make no mistake, things that are going to be discussed tonight are the very thing the world tries to bury. So Sam, brother, welcome to the Belfast Bobcast.
Hey, good to be on here, man. I can't wait to get back in your country either.
Yeah, well, you're certainly not coming here for the weather, I would imagine.
No, I think in May, but I think May you guys' weather is a little bit nice. So next year in May, I believe I'm back in your country again.
Yeah, I know you're definitely here May 11th anyway. So
yeah,
have you scheduled to open the forge? So be good to see you in person then.
Yeah, awesome, man.
So obviously people have got a good impression of what your life's about from the film, but can you tell us a little bit about the man before the film came out and before Christ Save You?
Yeah, I really believe though for the people that watch the movie Machine Gun Preacher, remember the movie is not very accurate. Now, a lot of people, when I say that, they start to get disappointed because the real story is better than the movie Machine Gun Preacher. Now, the first documentary that came out a year after the movie, and it's titled Machine Gun Preacher Documentary, that is the real deal. So when you see war, it's real, you know. So I'm not taking nothing from the movie. It's just Hollywood will take the truth and they put a little bit of a spin to it that don't make any sense, you know.
Yeah. Well, I actually haven't seen the documentary, so that gives me something to watch after I get off this evening.
Well, there's the first documentary, and it's like an action film. The only thing about it is it's a documentary. So what you're watching in there, it's all real. Now there's a second documentary that's only been out about a year. I'll have it when I come in. That second documentary shows 26 years. It's been out for almost a year. We filmed it for 2 years. I've been in Africa 29 years now. But the second documentary shows 26 years of fighting in war, disappointments, but victories. But the main thing, never stopping. So you can go to MGP Never Stop. MGP Never Stop, and you can watch the new documentary. And I believe it's better than the part 2 Machine Gun Preacher that they're talking about doing.
Okay, I didn't even realize they were talking about doing a part 2 Machine Gun Preacher, but obviously...
Yeah, well, you know, what's happening is I'm still alive. Since the first movie has come out, it's been 13 years. So they've been trying to do part 2 for the past 3 years. But I want my money up front. You know, they have not paid me all my money yet. I'm probably not going to get it. So the only reason Hollywood has not done part 2 is I told them the money has to be in the bank before I allow them to do it.
That's probably a sensible move, considering the characters you're dealing with in Hollywood.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So can we just take it back to before the Machine Gun Preacher time and just tell us a wee bit about your early life before you could see it?
Yeah, well, a lot of times when you get on the internet, you read a little bit on me on the internet. A lot of people sees that in my younger days I was in a lot of trouble, and right away they start thinking, "Wow, what kind of mom and dad did he have?" Well, to start with, I was raised, or I was born into probably the best family you could ever have. Both mom and dad, born again, middle class family. My dad was kind of a tough guy. My dad was a champ boxer. He was a Marine. He believed if you don't work, you shouldn't eat. My mom was like born again. I always tell people she come out of the womb speaking in tongues. She only sinned 3 times in her whole life when she gave birth to me and my 2 brothers. But I was raised in the best family. But from 3 years old to 10 years old, if you was to ask me, Sam, what are you going to be when you grow up? I'd have told you I'm going to be a preacher. But at 11 years old, everything changed. I started watching older kids in school. I wanted to fit in. Even the age we are right now, no matter what our age is, from a kid to an old man, if you want to fit into a certain group, you start dressing like them, you start doing what they're doing. And that's what I did. I started doing drugs, smoking marijuana, drinking at 11. By the time I was 15 years old, I was a heroin addict.
Just like that.
Just like that, man. I mean, it started out with just smoking cigarettes and smoking marijuana. And next thing you know, come alcohol. 12 and 13 years old, eating different drugs, acid and quaaludes. And by the time I was 14, snorting cocaine. 15 years old, shooting up heroin and cocaine. 15 years old, I moved out of my home. And keep in mind, I was in probably the perfect household, middle class home. My dad bought my first motorcycle when I was 7 years old. So I started riding at 7. I mean, so at 15 years old, I had a street bike. I had a Triumph in an old chopper frame. I mean, so I was living the life of a biker at 15 years old. Moved out of my house and started selling drugs.
And how long before the shit hit the fan?
I was born in 1962. I'm 63 years old now. In 1990 is when everything, even though I was into selling drugs, I was always a good business person. So I could always make money. And in 1990, I was living in Orlando, Florida, and got into a really bad bar fight. I was in business at the time, but doing a lot of drugs. And people got shot, people got stabbed. And I said, if I make it to that door, the door out of that bar room, I'm done living this life. And I made it to that door. I didn't say, if I make it to that door, I'm going to give my life to the Lord. I said, if I make it to that door, I'm done living this life. I went home that night, walked in the house. My wife was like, what happened to you? I was beat up pretty good. And I told her, but I also told her, I says, I'm done. We're moving. When you're in the world so bad and you want to get out of it, the only way you're going to get out is not to quit doing the drugs or to quit the drinking. Sometimes you got to relocate yourself. So I moved over 1,000 miles away back to my hometown where I lived when I was a little kid, and just started all over.
And at this point, had Christianity been an option, or was this?
No, at that point, it was 1990, so you can figure my age. And my wife starts going to church. Now, my wife was as bad off as I was. She was a stripper. She was doing the drugs. So she started going to church with my mom. And the next thing I know, they're going to church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday, prayer meetings in the house. I mean, she's full on Christian, man. And this went on for 2 years. 2 years, every weekend, all I would hear was, honey, will you go to church? Honey, will you go to church? Honey, there's a missionary there. And so I always kind of make a joke out of it. I always tell people, I don't know what you call that in Ireland, but in America, in the mountains of Pennsylvania, when a woman does that every week, we call it nagging.
Yeah.
And if you got a girlfriend or a wife that's nagging, us men in Pennsylvania, we shut them up. Okay. We know how to shut them up, and we just do what they say. And I said, okay, honey, I'll go. And so if you got a nagging wife or nagging girlfriend, do what they want. You'll take control back. And so I went to church, and, even when I was at my worst, I always knew Christ was real. I never doubted the existence of Jesus. I just thought, I don't need him. At that time in my life, I had everything I needed. I had guns, I had money, I had women, motorcycles. So I just didn't think I needed Jesus Christ. I knew he was real. If you wanted him, that's fine. I was going to go through life without him.
And even at this point, after being away from the gang life that you had lived before this point, moving back to your hometown, had you not sort of had the thought process of with Christ already being present in your mind? Was that never an option you would have came to by yourself, or was it just?
No, I mean, I still ride motorcycle. I still ride with a 1% club. I've always been a 1%er since I was 15 years old. I almost got killed, almost got killed in a bar fight. And I don't have a problem with dying. Okay. I never did. I don't have a problem with dying to this day, but now I have a problem with what I'm going to die for. I don't want to die for a barroom fight to go bad. I don't want to die for a jealous husband because I'm fooling around with his wife. I don't want to die for a drug deal going bad. If I'm going to die for something, I want it to be worthwhile and almost like rescuing children. If I'm going to die for something, let it be something they can write on my tombstone with a little bit of pride.
And what was the moment of conviction for you?
That Sunday that I went to church with my wife, I knew it was my day. As I was getting dressed, my hands were shaking. As I was driving to church, my cheeks were shaking. And as I was walking into the church, my knees felt like they were going to go out. And I knew today is my day. I didn't doubt it at all. I knew without a shadow of a doubt that I was going to walk into that church. And I was going to say, before I said it, I knew I was going to walk in and say, God, here I am. But it happened a little bit different. When I went in, when the preacher started preaching, I started to get mad at my wife because it was like everything he was preaching on was me. And I started thinking, did this woman call him up and tell him everything about me or what,
Yeah.
So finally he gives an altar call. I couldn't move. And when he gave the altar call, he said, if you want to just stand to your feet, stand to your feet. And I couldn't stand up. He said, if you want to raise your hand, just raise your hand. And I couldn't raise my hand. It was like I had a stroke. And I always tell people, preachers used to be preachers 30, 40 years ago. And he come walking to the back of that church and walks right up to me. He didn't come back to embarrass me. He didn't come back to drag me to the altar. He just come back and he said, man, the power of God is on you and you're just sitting here. And he prayed with me. And when he prayed with me, I said the words, Lord, here I am. Forgive me. Here I am. And that was the beginning right there.
So how do you move from that to moving to Africa then? What was the
You know, it took a few years, but the very next night, I walked away from Jesus for a number of years, and the very next night they were having church. So I went back to the church service, and this time all I wanted was the altar call. I sat right up front. And when he gave that altar call, I was the first one to stand up, and he started praying for me, the same preacher. And then all of a sudden he stopped and he started to prophesy, started to speak the word of the Lord into my life. And he said that I was going to Africa. And I'm thinking in my mind, I ain't going to Africa. I'm a white man. Why would I go to Africa? And then he kept speaking. He said I was going to be in a war. And I'm thinking, I'm already married. I'm not getting in another war, And the more he spoke into my life, the madder I got at this preacher. And I only been saved less than 24 hours. And I started thinking, I'm going to have to beat the snot out of this preacher. And then all of a sudden, I got angry and I left the church, walked out of the church. But I went home that night and I cried because I knew the man of God was speaking the truth. And for the next year, I cried almost every month. I knew I was to go to Africa. So that was in 92, June of 1992, and 93, 94. I started putting money into missions, started writing checks out, $500 here, $1,000 here. And because I was making good money. I had a real estate company, had a construction company. And then finally in 96, I wrote out a check for $20,000. And that's a lot of money now, let alone 1996. And I come home that night and I can remember reminding God what I just did. And I could hear God's voice as I stood outside and reminded God of that check. And God said, I don't need your money. He said, I need you. So 1997, I started thinking, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to trick God. I'm going to trick God. I'm going to go to Africa on a mission trip. I'm going to go on a 5-week mission trip, longer than your normal person that goes on one. So I go to Africa on this trip, and next thing I know, I get in the middle of a civil war.
and this was Coney was the
Yeah, Joseph Kony was the leader of the Lord Resistant Army. And I get up one morning and I heard that the LRA, the Lord Resistant Army, Joseph Kony's rebel group, they went into a village and slaughtered the whole village. And I've always been one of those people that I had to go see it. So I told these soldiers, I said, I got to go see what happened. And they said, Sam, it could be dangerous. I don't think we should go. And so finally I talked them into it, and we went to this village, and it was probably the worst thing I think I ever seen. Rebels, when they raid a village where there's no guns, they know it. And so they'll put their AK over their shoulder and they pull out their pangas. They'll pull out their machetes and they begin cutting the people up. So the bodies that were laying in this village, none of them was intact. They were all missing arms, legs, heads. I mean, it was horrible. And the one soldier said, we need to do a recon around this area. We need to search in the mud huts. We need to look in the bush for children that might be hiding. And, every time I preach around the world, I've done 17 world tours. I always say this, what I'm going to say here. God will open a door for you. And when you stand in that doorway, the decision you make at that moment will determine your destination in life. When we were looking for children, I come across the body of a small child. It stepped on a landmine. I couldn't tell if it was a boy or girl because everything was gone from the waist down. But I remember I couldn't understand how this could happen in the world. And I said to God, standing over that body, I said, God, I'll do whatever it takes to help these children. And here I am 29 years later. I'm the oldest American to still suit up, put the iron on and go into the battlefield and rescue children. It's still happening. The only difference, the work got massive. You know, the first orphanage started with a mosquito net hanging in a tree. And now it's so massive that it's even hard to believe. Sometimes I have to sit back and think about it for hours. And sometimes I wonder, am I dreaming? Is this really true? You know?
So talk to us a wee bit more about the beginnings of the
You know, I started the first orphanage, and we had a lot of children back then that were shot in the face, missing arms, missing legs. So I was always driving into Uganda where you would have a good hospital. So I knew I had to start another orphanage in Uganda. So I started the second orphanage, and I could hear God one night tell me, if you're just going to start another orphanage, why don't you go home? And I didn't understand at that moment what it was, but what God was trying to tell me, the average orphanage in a third world country, especially Africa, at 14 years old, you have to leave. You might make it 15 years old. But when you leave that orphanage, more than 70% of those children will end up being killed. And they end up being killed because they're forced into prostitution. They're forced into violent crimes. They die of disease. They die of AIDS. So I knew I had to be different. So we didn't only start working on orphanages. I knew I had to keep them longer than a normal orphanage, at least to 18 or 19, but I had to educate them. So over the years, I know how important education is. We've built 7 schools from the footer up. Right now, as I speak, we're building number 8th school. If you're on Facebook or anybody listening there, you can go to my Facebook, Samuel Childers. And Samuel Childers, you'll see, go back a few weeks, you'll see the number 8th school that we're building in the middle of nowhere. Because I believe if you want to change a nation, a third world country nation, Jesus Christ must be first. Second must be education. So we started to teach a skill and a trade, because there's a lot of kids out there like me. All the education in the world wasn't going to help me. But the good thing my dad did is he taught me and my brothers how to work with our hands. So we bought a commercial farm. Farm started out 200 acres. Now it's over 1,200 acres. But we were teaching farming, ranching, and irrigation, teaching young people a skill and a trade, and it worked. So, you know, because of who I was, because of the kind of person I was, and, you know, always kind of raising hell and getting in trouble and selling drugs and running with some crazy people, if I do something now and it works for the good, I want to do it bigger and better. So we started other projects, and one of the projects that we done in northern Uganda, I was near the game park, where the game park, I'm talking the safari park. in northern Uganda, in the middle of nowhere on a main highway. And I'm driving down the road and God says, stop. So I stopped and he said to me, this is where I want you to put a fuel station in. And I'm like, come on, God, I'm in the middle of nowhere. So we started this fuel station on 10 acres of ground. Now, because God is in it, it's 75 plus acres. Shell used to have the largest American style truck stop in East Africa until my God got started. And now it has a supermarket, hardware store, tire shop, welding shop, paint shop, auto mechanic shop, 30 some hotel rooms, 2 different restaurants, and it keeps growing. I mean, we're actually right now getting ready to put in a recreation area. I mean, so it's turning into like a resort, but what it's doing is creating jobs. The farm at peak season has over 150 jobs. The truck stop right now is over 150 jobs. The new project that we're starting to build at this truck stop that will turn it in almost to like a resort will probably be up to around 220 or 230 people working at the truck stop. So, I mean, that's how you change a nation. Jesus Christ first, second, education, thirdly, teaching young people a skill and a trade, but giving them a job.
Yeah, 100%. So a lot of, well, nearly all of the children you were dealing with were child soldiers or ex-child soldiers or at risk.
Yes,
Mhm.
or victim. All of the people that we work with, all of them are what they call victims of war. You know, whether you are a victim of war being shot, or you're just a victim of war bringing up in an area where the war was 2 3 hours from you. You know, you imagine if a war is a few hours from you, the whole country suffers of war. And as you probably know from your experience, uh, it takes at least 10 years after the war is over to start rehabilitation. So even though the Coney War has been, Coney's been kind of pushed out around 2012, 2013, we still got all of those people to rehabilitate. But now there's a war in Congo, and the war in Congo, I'm involved there. You got ISIS, you got Islamic State, and you have ADF of Congo. Those 3 rebel groups have come together, and they're bad. So that's the area that I'm working now. So I don't believe the rehabilitation will even be close to being done in my lifetime. But we just keep pushing on. You know, we keep rescuing children.
Can you speak to us on like some individual stories of any of the children you've brought through?
Yeah, you know, there's just so many. I mean, we have one boy that he was with me. His dad was killed as a soldier. Majak is his name. His dad was killed as a soldier. His mom was killed carrying him through the war zone, and he was only like 1 week old. And so now he's at our farm. He's one of the field managers. I'm building a new school near the farm. So he's going to be kind of one of the overseers of this school. So, I mean, I have another boy that he was rescued out of a battlefield, and he's also working at the farm. I sent him to university to be an accountant. So he is the accountant on the farm. We have a young girl that her name is Rita. Really awesome story. She finished her schooling. We sent her into university. She went in for business and a few other things, hospitality, hotel management. and she's running the supermarket now. She graduated with a master's. She's the first child to graduate from university with a master's degree. Now, we have a lot of children that after they're done with their normal schooling, we put them into trade school. Could be from how to be a chef to auto mechanic, but she's the first child that we had graduate with a master's. So those are some unbelievable stories. But the farm, it's amazing what our farm does. A number of years ago, the farm went from 200 acres to 1,200 acres. Now we only farm half of it. The other half is used for grazing for cows and sheep and goat. But the half where we do the farming does very, very well. And about 7 years ago, God spoke to me to give away the main crop. And I'm like, come on, God, we're using this food for ourselves and we're selling it. We're making good money. But 7 years ago, we started giving it away. And just to tell you how big God can be, last year alone, we fill our own storehouses on every project. We have 5 different children projects that goes from homes to orphanages to child sponsorship. But we fill all of our storehouses, and we gave away over 80 ton of processed rice. We gave away over 25 ton of processed maize flour. My wife is doing the harvest now. She's harvesting right now. Next week, I'll be back in Africa working with her. But right now, the harvest looks to be bigger than last year. So last year, we gave away well over 105 ton of food. So you're talking feeding thousands of people for 3 to 4 months ration. Now, keep in mind, like Western countries, I'm sure your country has a welfare system like America. In
Yeah.
America, nobody goes hungry. But in Africa, there is no welfare system. There is no system to give you free food. So, I mean, the farm is literally saving thousands of lives.
Now, obviously, this juxtaposed to the way you were living must be like walking. Obviously, there's dangers and everything else involved, but the feeling you must have inside compared to what you had previous.
You know, I think what people see when they look into my life and look into who Sam Childers used to be, I believe what they see is if God can use me, he can use anybody. And there's so many people out there that will come up to me and they say, well, you don't know what I have done. And I don't know if God can forgive me. And I always tell them, read what I have done. I have 2 books out. The one book, Another Man's War. My second book is Living on the Edge. I have a third book. The proof copies come to my office in the US next week. And the third book is titled The Most Unlikely. And that's who I was. So what I love about the story that God gave me, you got to remember, I wouldn't have the story if I wouldn't have gave my life to the Lord. So the story that God gave me, when people read it, it gives them hope for their own self.
100%. And I think if people actually understood Christianity better, they would understand that Christ came to the earth for the sinner, for the destitute.
Come on, man.
That's why he came. And because people that are living like that know they need rescued, know they need redeemed. And when lifted up,
and I think Matthew chapter 25, it's titled in the Living Translation, The Last Commandments. And Jesus talks about the sheep and the goats. And he talks about what we are to do. to feed the hungry. We have one feeding program that started about 19 years ago. It started with 21 children. And now that feeding program went from 21 children to over 10,000 meals a day. And I think if you look at the scripture that talks about how we're to clothe people, we send 40-foot containers to Africa. We give clothing to people that's naked. But it says also that to give someone that's thirsty clean water. For 15, 16 years, we've been drilling water wells. Now, anybody out there listening, you can go to our website. You can make a donation today. But if you want to save lives, you drill one well in a needed village, you'll save 1,500 to 2,000 people. What people don't realize is statistics say when you Google East Africa, 1,200 people die per day of bad water, parasites and bacteria. So just drilling a well, and last year, 2024, we drilled 15 wells. This year, we're at 9. Our goal, now we're running out of time, so hear me, people. We're running out of time. Our goal is to drill 3 more wells before the end of the year. I like to try to dedicate 1 well per month, and we're running a little bit short for 2025.
Well, after we'll get all your links into the description so people can. What is the website, just so they can go?
The website is a very easy way to get me because I believe you can remember it. I'm going to give you our name and you'll probably forget it, but the website is machinegunpreacher.org. So everything from machinegunpreacher.org, and everything from giving to projects, sponsoring children, everything is on there. There should be a link to carry you over to purchase the documentary. The new documentary is titled MGP Never Stop. When you Google that, it'll bring you straight to a website. You can download it. You can buy it. And I'm telling you, if you like action films, I love action films, but let's be for real. The first John Wick, I loved it, man. But now they're too over. I mean, come on, if I watch an action film, I think that's why I like the Cowboys, because it got to be something realistic, this John Wick 3 and John Wick 4 that's getting ready to come out, or maybe it's out already. They're just too overwhelming to believe it, But when you watch the MGP Never Stop, it's real life. There's no actors. There's nothing made to believe. It's all real.
So, in regards to the actual real life action, can you talk us through like one of the times where you've been in actual battle and coming back to taking the kids back?
My first book, Another Man's War, is full of stories. And, for those that watch the movie Machine Gun Preacher, it shows in the movie that the rebels burnt the orphanage to the ground. The truth is, the orphanage was attacked 2 times. The one time they were attacked by over 200 rebels. They could never penetrate through a bamboo fence. That's the power of God. There was another time. Go ahead.
What was the resistance? Like, how many did you have guarding the perimeter?
There was over 200 rebels attacked the orphanage. They were shooting RPG rockets at the fence, but they could never get through the fence. They never made it on boots on the ground on the orphanage. That's the truth. Hollywood showed them burning the orphanage to the ground. Not true. Now, there was another time we were driving down the road, and I learned in Africa when you get ambushed by the rebels, the best thing to do is to drive off of the road very quickly into the nearest ditch where your car can kind of be down lower than they're shooting, and then jump out of the car. So we jumped out of the car, but that morning when we were getting ready to head for supplies, it was me and two soldiers. We each had an AK-47. I had a Mackinac old pistol with 8 bullets, and we each had one magazine that was 30 to 32 rounds each of us had. We got ambushed that morning. We drove into the ditch. And this story you can believe or not believe. I don't care. I'm only telling you the truth. We fought for well over 2 hours, just rattling off, rattling off bullet after bullet after bullet. Finally, the enemy gave up and they left. And I still had bullets in my magazine. So, people say, what did God do? God gave you bullets. The clips never went empty. It was a miracle from God. I mean, people can believe it or not, and there's story after story like that one. Another time, we're driving down the road and the military stopped us. They said they knew me. They said, Sam, you can't go no further. The Lord resistant army is out front. They're attacking the village. And I said, come on, we got to go. I had 2 trucks and there was 5 of us in 2 trucks. And they said, no, you can't. They'll kill you. And I said, we're going. So God spoke to me to put Peter on the roof of one truck, Thomas on the roof of another truck. And we had 30 cal machine guns. And we're driving down the road, and I mean, you know how the roads in Africa, they're bumpy, they're ditches, but God kept saying, drive faster, drive faster. And I mean, we're driving so fast, Peter and Thomas is almost falling off the roof. Finally, I come around a corner and I could see the smoke and the fighting, and you could see the rebels, and God said, tell them to start shooting. So I hollered up and I told Peter and Thomas, start shooting. And they started rattling off that 30 cal machine gun. And instantly I looked in my rear view mirror to see where the other truck was. And all you could see was a cloud of dust. And I looked back in front of me, and all I could see was the enemy running away. They thought an army was coming down the road. All it was 2 trucks, 5 soldiers, and me.
I'm sure that was a pretty intense feeling at the time.
I'm telling you, man. I mean, when I tell people the stories, I've been in over 10 major battles. They tried to assassinate me 10 times. They ambushed me over 10 times. Ambushed was way over 10 times on the roads. But I'm telling you, when I tell the real stories, they were all miracles of God.
Yeah, well, there doesn't really sound any other way of getting out of either of the 2 situations that you explained there other than divine intervention.
Come on, man. It happened to me so many times.
And I think one of the big issues that a lot of people have with Christianity is it's so sanitized in the West. And like I was saying to you before coming on the live here, whenever I seen the machine gun preacher, even though it was dramatized or whatever, it was the first time I seen a Christianity that I could get amongst, because there was action, there was actual work, as opposed to just turning up on a Sunday and judging each other's cars and hairstyles.
Right. Go out to eat and talk about the football game. I believe we're living in the days where God needs real men. He needs real men. I believe men got to stop acting like pansies. I believe we got to stand up for what is right. There's too many of us that's willing just to be quiet and walk away. You know, in the US, there's a TV program where they go into restaurants and they have a hidden camera, and they see if they start picking on the most unlikely, they see, does somebody there watching, will they help? I don't know the name of the show, but you know what's so sad? Of the unbelievable amount of people that turn their back and they walk away because they don't want to get involved.
So you've given me near the tears just talking about what you were talking about there, because I have a real conviction over the way men are these days, and to restore men to proper masculinity, because we're in a time where God needs proper weaponized soldiers of God, not wimps, not pansies, just proper steel men who are, you know, a sword for God and there for his work. And
Come on.
that's why I'm
Yep.
building the
Come on,
forge
man.
in Belfast, because we used to be, we've always been a nation that's flew the flag of religion, but we've never
Yep.
practiced it. And we need to rise
Yep.
up a nation of proper men to secure the communities here, and to, you know, just even the impact it has on the normal household. If the man
Yep.
falls,
Well,
the finances fall, the children fall, you know, everything falls around them. A weak man brings weak communities, and we need to rise up
yep.
an absolute army of strong masculine men who are God
Yep.
fearing. And
Well,
that's
I
what you're
believe that I can't say a lot about your country because I don't know about Ireland. I don't know about Belfast, but I know in America we got more men wanting to be pansies. We got more men wanting to be women. That is just totally unheard of, you know.
well.
And
So
but that's why America is falling apart, you know. I believe right now there is some hope for America because we got a president in there that's stopping it all, you know. I don't know how your country is on sex change for children, but it was getting so bad in America that I this is what I can't understand. You can't drink till you're 21 in America. You can't vote till you're 18. You can't join the army till you're 18. But at 10 years old, you could say you wanted a sex change to be a boy or a girl. And if your parents tried to stop you, the government was trying to make laws where they could come in and force the parents to accept it. You know, so all of that has been stopped now, you know. So there is hope right now for America. But America has been so messed up for the past decade, it's going to take us years to get back on track.
100%. And it used to be that Ireland and the United Kingdom would have been like a couple of years behind the trends that were going on in America, but it's like for like over here now. You know, there's a whole generation coming up that aren't sure if they're boys or girls, or it's
Yeah,
just
I'm
so
telling
sad.
you, man.
It's so sad
I tell
because
everybody all the time, put mirrors in the toilets. If you're standing up to piss, that means you're a boy.
yeah, it's
You
pretty
know,
cut and
it
dry, isn't it?
things need to change, man. It needs to change, and it's going to take real men willing to stand up, you know. and
Well, see,
I
this is the
believe I
problem.
believe that I believe America has been turning into one of the weakest countries because our land has been filling up with terrorists. You know, Somalia, I know most people out there listening might not know much of Somalia, but Somalia is mainly full of one of the biggest, worst, meanest terrorists in the world, Al Shabaab.
Yeah,
And we had our borders open and our guard down for so long. We got a whole city that's run by Al Shabaab. We got other cities like Dearborn, Michigan, that's run by ISIS, and Minneapolis, Minnesota, run by Al Shabaab. And you know, a lot of people are upset over what America's doing right now. Is they're sending people that are not Americans back to their own country. We're like Trump said, if you're going to burn our flag, if you're going to curse our country and tell everybody how bad America is, go home. Go home.
It is pretty simple, isn't it? If you don't like
Yeah,
it,
just go home.
just
One of
go.
the governors said, "I'll even buy you a ticket. Go home."
It's so true. And, if people could only see, like, this has clearly been orchestrated against the people. This has been like a slow drip on, turning the mindset of generations and the question. Like, this wasn't a thing when we were at school,
Yeah.
and it's
If you let your guard down, and like I said, I've been to Ireland a few times, and I don't know your laws, but I know when I come into Ireland, I had to show my passport. We got people coming to America just walking through the borders, no passport, no IDs, and it's been proven we have left in ISIS, we have left in terrorists. And what do? We just don't let them in. We give them a credit card with $5,000 worth of credit. We give
I'll
them a
put them up in
health
a
card where they
hotel.
can.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, man. So things got to change, but the only way it will change is with God-fearing men.
And that brings us on nicely to when you're coming over here in May. And so on May the 11th, you'll be over in Belfast in person. And we're hoping that you're going to be opening the Forge, which is going to be a physical men's restoration hub for proper rehabilitation so we can raise up proper God fearing men.
That's awesome, man. I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, every time I've been in your country, I love it there. I have great respect for it, and I look forward to it. And for everyone out there, please follow us on Facebook. You'll see I only mentioned a few of our projects. We have the Bush Kids Project where we go into the bush with doctors and nurses and we treat children. That goes on every month. We treat them for malaria. Malaria kills a child in East Africa every minute. So, I mean, we have those projects. We have so many projects. When people look at the organization, they're amazed how big it got. But it only got that big because of the people out there that hear me speak. They go to the website, they make a donation, and they say, "Wow, I want to be part of this." And that's why it got so big. But the big thing, our organization is still out there rescuing children. It's already set up. If something happens to me, whether it be next week, 5 years, or 10 years down the road, there's already a younger couple in place to take over the organization. So check out, the real name is Angels of East Africa is our real name. But follow us on Facebook. There's 4 Facebook sites. Samuel Childers is my personal site. The other 3 I'm going to tell you, but they're all basically the same. But the other 3 my office runs. There's Sam Childers, there's the Machine Gun Preacher, then there's the real Machine Gun Preacher, Sam Childers. But those 4 sites are ours. Making donations, if you got questions, if you want to put boots on the ground, we have a lot of people from your country that has visited our projects in East Africa. If you want to visit the projects or just make a donation, Google Machine Gun Preacher. You'll go straight to the website and you can put boots on the ground. You can let your hands and feet do the work of Jesus.
And I think that's what a lot of more people need to start doing, as opposed to just writing checks, is getting out there and doing it.
Absolutely. Yep.
Because we need men of action, men and women of action. It's not obviously just men. Behind every good man, there's an even better woman. And without the support of your wife, I'm sure you wouldn't have been as capable as you are currently.
Absolutely. My wife and me now. I remarried in 2018, so my wife is a young African girl, and we work side by side. I own one of the top 10 security companies in East Africa. That's another one of my businesses. So she works security. We work side by side, and we work the orphanages, we work the rescues, the feeding programs, everything we do. Like I said, about a week ago or so, she was in the field with a big harvester, harvesting the food.
And what would you say currently is like the biggest need for your project?
I think the biggest need is for people to donate for our feeding programs. If you go to Google, you'll see the statistics are kind of wide and far, but the ones that you can really count on, they say by mid-year of 2026, there's about 70 million people on the verge of starvation in East Africa only. So we can't save them all. There's no way. But with your help, with the people that's listening, we can save some lives. And keep in mind, we focus on children because children are the ones that we can rehabilitate. Children are the ones that can be the future for the land. So we focus on the children. So the big thing for us is people to give finances. Sometimes putting boots on the ground is good, but at the same time, the people that go over and put boots on the ground, you're not allowed to go into an active war area. You can get in a lot of trouble. You can go to prison trying to go into an active war area. So what I tell people is let the people that are experts, let the people that's their life, let us go in and rescue the children. You can work on the orphanages. You can help us to support the orphanages that rehabilitates the children.
When you're doing the Lord's work, because trolls come into the chat and start leaving nasty comments, and how anyone can have a problem with a man that is out, rescuing children under the name of God is beyond me. But that's just demons in people, and
Yeah, but I've had that from the beginning. But you know what? I'm glad that I have people that talk about me. In the book of Matthew, chapter 5, verses 10, 11, and 12, you read those verses, and it says, if you are persecuted for my sake, you'll be blessed. So people that might hack on me for whatever, I don't want them to shut up. I don't want people to make them shut up. I'm a very blessed man. I have a motorcycle shop in America. I live a very good life. And I believe it's because of the people that try to persecute me. They just help me go to another level. So let them talk.
Yeah, I think when you blindly follow God's command and be damned with people's opinions,
Yeah.
it's a
And
very fruitful
I
life.
don't know Ireland, but usually in America, it's about a 350-pound person sitting behind a computer. They don't want to get up to go to the toilet, so they don't do nothing in their community. They don't do nothing in their country. All they do is eat free food and sit in front of the computer. So
I would be
I
like
believe that any man or woman that wants to change lives and save lives, they're going to like the work that we do.
100%, and anybody with discernment is going to like the work that you do. And as you say, without your haters, are you really doing the work of God? Because you would need to
Absolutely. Come on.
you need to
Yeah,
be
come
stirring
on.
the demons inside people. And like, even I have went publicly sober here on I've quite a following on Facebook and stuff for the business, and I've went publicly sober the last 8 days and proclaimed my Christianity, and I've had an overwhelming
Wow.
amount of support, but I have had so many so many hateful comments, but they're just fuel. It's just
Yeah,
fuel, and
yeah, yeah.
eating them by the day, and knowing that, yeah, well, like, I'm getting
Well,
the
look
proper
at look
reaction.
at what they look at what they called Jesus. They called him a wine bibber. They called him a rebel. Some said he was possessed. I mean, they talked awful about him, and all he was about feeding people and giving hope in a future. So, and at the end of the day, they still hung him on the cross. but God rose him to change our life. You know, he died
I
on the
think,
cross for our sins, but God rose him from the dead to live for us today.
and people talk about that almost like it's a fairy tale story, but there's more evidence to back that than some of the most biggest historical figures that we.
Everybody, everybody in history that sat out to prove it wasn't true ended up becoming a believer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it speaks
All
for
right,
itself.
buddy. I hate to cut it short, but I think we've had an hour, and I got several hours. I'm in Texas right now. I have 2 more meetings the next couple days, so be praying for us. We need a miracle to happen. I fly back to Africa next week, so be praying for us. We got a lot of work we're doing, but everybody out there that hears me speaking right now, you can contact me through Facebook. You can contact me through the main website, Machine Gun Preacher. So it's easy to get a hold of me. If you want to go to Africa, if you want to give, the big thing you could really help me out with, get all your friends, get all your family to download that new documentary, MGP Never Stop.
I'm going to put all the links in the description, Sam, and I'd like to thank you very much for giving us an hour of your time today. And obviously, I look forward to seeing you in person in May to open the hub
Thank
and the
you,
forums.
brother.
And God
And
bless you.
everyone, remember my last words. If God can use me, imagine what he can do with you. God bless
And
you.
we'll end it on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. God bless.
Thank you, Sam. God bless.